I'm Susan Neal, and you're listening to the Caretakers Journey podcast.
Welcome to the show. I am your host, Carol Leatham, and I am excited to welcome you to today's show because my friend Susan Neal is coming on. She is going to talk to us about her new book. And let me just tell you a little bit about Susan. She is an RN. She's a health coach. She is a Christian who wants to show people how to reclaim their health and ideal weight by giving them knowledge about unhealthy foods, solutions for resolving all of those negative eating habits, and methods that we can use to incorporate God into our new healthy lifestyle. Susan's background is that she lost her health at age 50 and found herself lying in bed, utterly exhausted, unable to process or function normally, and it all began with an abscessed tooth that was poisoning her body. Over the next year, she developed these 10 medical diagnoses, and she had 2 surgeries, gained an unhealthy amount of weight. The doctors did all she could, but she was still not well. So what did she do? Well, as a registered nurse with a master's degree in health, she decided to take her medical knowledge and the biblical knowledge that she had and recover her health and her weight. She now shares what she discovered with others, and now we can achieve an extraordinary life with what God wants us to experience. Susan has written an award-winning healthy living series of books, and I have read them, and they are fantastic. And she has a brand new book coming out on May 28th that is called 12 Ways to Age Gracefully, How to Look and Feel Younger. And we all want that. Welcome to the show, Susan. I'm so excited you're here.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Carol. I'm excited to be here.
You know, one of the things that I have noticed over the last few years that you and I have become friends is we have kind of walked a lot of stressful journeys in our lives together. I've seen you go through some stuff. You've seen me go through some stuff. And our podcast is geared towards a caretaker, someone who is in a position of caring for somebody else. And I think stress, unhealthy eating, and staying in a positive mental frame of mind are 3 of the most chaotic and important things that we deal with. So today, as we dive into your book, that's one of the things I found because I was blessed with an advanced copy of it and I've already read it. And let me tell you guys, gals and guys, it's got some great stuff in there I've already implemented. So Susan, what led you to write this book first off, and just kind of share the process of going through this?
So people would ask me, how do you stay so young looking and active? And I'm in my 60s. And even my mother-in-law is like, okay, so you don't color your hair? And it's like, no. And because I found out like about 13 years ago that if you take a mineral supplement, that there are scientific studies that show that when your mineral levels are low, it can contribute to premature aging. Now, some people have that genetically and it can't change. But others like myself, I think taking different types of mineral supplements has contributed to that. So it's like I understand scientific, youthful hacks that I can share with others.
I love that. And I think that the whole idea of being healthy and maintaining your health into your 60s, we're both in our 60s. I'm actually going to have a birthday here in a few weeks and be 66. And I have found as I have aged, it's been harder for me to maintain my health, my weight. And of course, stress adds a whole another aspect to this. And one of the things that I have had several conversations with and I deal with is stress eating. And I know that through your healthy lifestyle books, and especially through this new book that's coming out, you talk a lot about eating and you talk about healthy eating. So give us some thoughts on what exactly you mean when you say healthy eating, and maybe talk a little bit about stress eating and why that's not so good for us.
Right. I believe stress eating is really one of the reasons why people, gain an unhealthy amount of weight. And so we can still eat healthy even if we're eating out of stress. One of my favorites was always a green apple with slathering each slice with almond butter, because you have a little bit of sweetness, but you have your protein. And so it's very filling, and it makes you feel as though you're not missing anything. It's absolutely delicious. But another component is that we need to turn to God and
Mm-hmm.
understand, okay, I am eating out of stress. So I have used Ephesians 5:18. Don't drink too much wine, for
Mm-hmm.
many evils lie along that path. Be filled instead with the Holy Spirit and controlled by Him. And you can fill in that word with, don't eat too much chips, don't eat too much
Yeah.
cake, don't eat, whatever, it may be, and post that on your refrigerator and speak it out loud to get the sword of the
Mm-hmm.
Spirit activated to help curb those temptations.
So after I read your book, and I was reading the chapter, and you were talking about stress eating and unhealthy eating. You talked about the apple and the almond butter, and I ordered those and had them delivered, apple and almond butter, and that has been my go-to snack in the afternoon. And then I also, I know, and it is true, exactly what you said. It is a very filling, but it is a very satisfying snack.
Mhm.
I actually put a little bit of flaky sea salt on the
Mm.
almond butter because I do have this craving for salty foods. So, not so much a sweet tooth, but the salty. And so that kind of, okay, I can do this. The other thing is I'm the queen of post-it notes. And for those of you listening, that don't know me, you'll go, what does that mean? For those of you that do know me, you'll know that my entire room is covered in post-it notes, everything I do. If it's important, it goes on a post-it note to remind me. So after I read your book, I put, don't eat, drink water. And I put it on a post-it note on my refrigerator. So when I go to naturally, and I found out that I had to also put it on the pantry where all of the snacks are, because there is this mindlessness that almost takes over when you're feeling stressed. And I think when the stress of a caretaker gets to the point where you're just overwhelmed, we're looking for anything to take that away. And I've also I've been putting scriptures on post-it notes, but then putting them maybe in the kitchen where I can see them. And I think that was a great tip. Great tip.
So
So
the
go
so
ahead.
the don't eat but drink water. To explain that further, what happens is many times we go to the refrigerator or cabinet, we think we're hungry, but actually we've hardly ever even drank today. We're
Yeah.
dehydrated. We don't
Mm-hmm.
even realize it. Well, if you drink 2 glasses of water before you go to consume any food, you might find you're full then of water, and all you needed was water.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And that made so much sense to me because I sat down and started thinking, okay, what have I drank? How much water have I drank? And I'm not a natural water drinker. So I actually went and got a large container that's 32 ounces. And I have some stickers that a friend of mine has designed. And so I ordered some stickers and I decorated my water container, and I carry it with me everywhere now. And I know, which is another tip from your book, that if I drink 3 of those, if I can get through 2 of them, I have had plenty of water. If I can get through 3, then I've had enough. So tell us the secret that you share in the book about how much water we actually need to drink, because I had no idea about this.
Right. So it's half your weight in ounces. So if you're 160 pounds, then you would need to drink 80 ounces of water, which is 10 cups of water. And
Mm-hmm.
so, as a caretaker or as someone that you're there with who you're taking care of, I
Mm-hmm.
recommend filling up something like, 40 ounces, like you did, and just do it twice, even sitting it on the counter.
Yeah.
so that you know that who you're taking care of and yourself are consuming the amount of water that they should every day.
Absolutely. And I've noticed, and we're going to kind of go into this positive mental frame of mind, because for me, that's another thing that I struggle with as a caretaker. I'm caring for my mom, I'm caring for another family member and my husband. And it's hard for me sometimes to stay positive when things are not going the way I want them to go. And what I discovered with the water is that I live in a Bakersfield, California, which gets really hot. I mean, we're already in the 90s, 95s, and 100s, and it's a dry, dry, dry. So I will go to the gym in the morning and then go for a walk. And by the time I get back from the walk, I started kind of implementing all of this a few days ago. I find that I'm thirsty.
Mhm.
I never felt thirst before. But when I started drinking water, now, instead of just mindlessly figuring it, I feel thirsty. And so I find myself grabbing the water. I know, I know. It's so funny because that was something that never really dawned on me, that I wasn't drinking enough water. And such a simple fix. So now I actually have a littler thing of water that I will take with me when I'm walking, because sometimes when I'm out walking, I tend to get sort of distracted. And, when we talk about walking, I've discovered that walking in my neighborhood, watching the squirrels, watching the birds, watching the little cats in the neighborhood, all of a sudden I found this distraction that was so helpful. And then listening to the scripture. So let's talk for a minute about a positive mental mind frame, and how do you do it? And then how would you suggest, or what would you suggest for a caretaker? How, if they don't have a lot of time, how could they find something to give them that positive frame of mind?
Well, that's really tough for someone who is a caretaker. Um, but in my book, I described, here's a cup and it's either half empty or half full. So many
Mhm.
times it's attitude, how you look at it.
Mhm.
So, how can you look at what is going on in your life and see it from a positive frame of mind versus a
Mhm.
negative frame of mind?
Yeah. Yeah. So you also talk in the book, there was one part of the book that I realized, you talk about forest bathing and being out in nature. And
Yeah.
forest bathing is something I had heard about, but I had never really done anything or researched it or whatever. So share with us what that means, why that's important, and how we can implement that even if we only have a few minutes.
So forest bathing, it's when you go out in nature and your senses feels the nature. You feel the wind blow, you hear the rustling of the leaves, you smell the flowers, you
Mhm.
touch a leaf. All of your senses is, and you can do that experience in your own front porch, your own backyard. So they found scientifically that when someone goes into a forest and experiences the senses of nature that God created, it
Mm.
naturally decreases our stress level.
Wow.
It just goes down. And if you think about, we are a nation with, just electronic devices all over.
Mhm.
And if we get away from them, it's like that's hard on our whole brain and such.
Mhm.
And when we get away from them in nature, it rejuvenates a portion in the brain. So
Okay.
we need time in nature, even if it's sitting on your own front porch.
So even if we don't live near a forest and can't go and immerse ourselves, we can find a way to walk out into a yard or go to a park or go outside. I tend to, a lot of times in the afternoon when I'm overwhelmed or stressed, and maybe I've had 3 phone calls from my mom or one of her caretakers trying to solve something. If I will take now a big glass of ice water and walk out, and just standing on the grass barefoot, I had a guest a few weeks ago. She said, "Just go outside and walk barefoot in the grass." And I was like, "Ooh," and I did it. And there was that sense. And I think that what I took away from your forest bathing illustration was getting your senses involved, the smell, the feel, the wind, all of that. And it does relieve your stress. It does. So,
And what you just talked about, it's called earthing, and it's placing your feet on the ground, on the earth that God created. And there are magnetic forces there, and we do not understand um, exactly how that is positively contributing to the body,
oh,
but it does. And so I have on my back porch, I have a little chair right next to the ground. So I
okay.
can sit with myself in the chair, and then I put my feet on the ground. I can, go through my emails, or I can just
I l
listen and absorb the nature while I'm there. But earthing with your feet on the ground is beneficial for the body.
Wow, okay, so I'm doing earthing, okay. So if you can't do forest bathing, you can do earthing. I love this. I'm really enjoying this because I really do I am a very positive person, and it's hard for me when I start to feel that pressure come in. Now, what are some ways if somebody we talk about changing your mind. Let's talk for a few minutes about some practical ways that if you don't have a positive attitude, you can change your mind.
Singing. Singing has scientifically found that it releases endorphins and the dopamine, and singing, especially praise and worship music to the Lord, it resets that mind. So,
I love it.
singing, doing any form of exercise, again, gets the endorphins going.
Yeah.
Hugging your who you're caring for, hugging
Mhm.
your spouse, petting your animal, a cat or dog, calling a friend,
Yes.
writing in your journal, praying,
Mhm. Mhm.
praying to the Lord
Mhm.
to help you endure, to help you to continue to do your best for others, to serve them. And
Mhm.
all of that helps
Yeah.
change your mindset positively.
Yeah, I tend to create playlists in my phone. I'll just create different playlists, and I have a playlist that I feel like if I need to just sort of really, if I'm feeling really really stressed and I really need to focus on God, I have some different songs that do that. I have a couple of songs that are really fun. I actually do not have a singing voice, but I have been known to sing. And it's been very hard sometimes when I'm in the car and I want to sing and I know my grandchildren are in the back seat and I'm like, I know that if I start this, I'm not terrible, but I'm not good. So I think I'm fine. But it's so funny because I think sometimes we limit somebody who doesn't feel like they can sing is going to say, "Oh, I could never sing." And that's not true. That right there, I would say, singing along, sing low, let the person you're listening to sing loud. But I agree. I think it's very, very critical to play those music. And there's one or two songs that if I feel like I really want to lift my spirits, I will put them on and they're almost dancing songs where, you find yourself just kind of moving with the music and you can't help. And they're Christian songs and you just can't help but kind of do a twirl here or there. And so I've been
Yes,
known to do, yeah, I've been known to
and
do that as well.
and God will appreciate your voice. He made you. He
Mm.
made your voice. So when you're singing to him, he's going to love it.
Well, that's an encouraging thing. I might get more brave. I might get more brave. I tend I have little grandchildren, and I know for me those grandchildren. I have 7. I live with 3 of them, and then I have 4 smaller ones that I see probably 3 or 4 times a month. And those yes, those 7 human beings can coax me out of any type of a bad mood. You know. Yeah, any type of a bad mood, any type. And so that's cool. Let's talk for a minute about balance, because you have some of our caretakers that are listening to our show today work full time, care for a loved one, and they're trying to find balance in their life. And so let's talk practically for a few minutes about work, balance, caretaking. What do we do when that feels like it's too much, and how do we find balance?
That's a tough one, especially for a caregiver. But if you do work, I mean, you're gonna have to like double do it. I mean, in the car, use that time for praying, use that time for singing praises to the Lord to release those endorphins. You need to have connections. You don't
Mhm,
want to be isolated. So if you are, stuck at home with whom you're caring for, what kind of connections can you
mhm,
continue to facilitate? Whether it's a phone call to your loved one across the country,
mhm,
or it being in a writers group in a Zoom link, through
mhm,
Zoom, whatever it may be, being in a book club and you can't attend, but maybe you could just FaceTime. You could still continue to try and read. And then also just finding your divine purpose. And that
mm,
divine purpose may be taking care of your loved one and reminding yourself that you're taking care of this person as though you're taking care of the Lord
mhm.
Jesus.
That's hard. And I think I think that something you said about connection is so huge, because I find that when I start to feel the pressure of caretaking and it gets too much, I tend to hibernate and not reach out.
Mm,
And if I don't reach out, every now and then there's a couple of people in my life who, if they haven't heard from me, if I haven't sent them a text, or I haven't responded to a text, or they've sent me an email or whatever, and I've not responded, they will pick up the phone and they'll call me and they'll go, "Hey, what's going on? I haven't seen you on social media. I haven't seen you, where are you? What's wrong?" And so that is the exception to the norm. I think that the hardest thing to do as a caretaker is to pick up the phone and say, "Hey,
I need help.
I need help. I need help." And sometimes help is a phone call for maybe
Away.
15 or 20 minutes. And that's all it took for me over the weekend when I was really having a hard time. I knew that my friend would drop everything if I called her and said, "Hey, I need some help." And all we did was just talk about life, and she made me laugh, and we just kind of communicated. I don't need to fill her in on the story. She just knows how messy and chaotic my life is. But it's hard. It's hard. And so I think asking for help is
Yeah,
critical.
it is. And, there are even volunteer groups who, will come in and watch your loved one for a period of time. So you can go for a walk, you can go to the gym, you can go to the grocery store, whatever that may be. I know that we had that when my sister was taking care of my mother who had dementia. And
Mhm.
it was a tough time, but those breaks really did help.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, and I think when we're talking about taking these breaks, there's something else that I've discovered inside of me as a caretaker, and I know other caretakers deal with it. And that is, we feel guilty when we walk away. We feel
Mm.
responsible. There's a responsibility. It was really hard for me. I spent the month of April with my mom, and when I got on the plane to come home, I found myself thinking, "Oh, I can't go home." I knew I needed to come home because I had another caretaking situation at home that I needed to deal with, and I'd been gone for a month, and it was hard. And as I sat in the first leg of my flight home, I was almost resetting my mind, because I had fallen into this trap of, if I don't do it, no one can do it.
Mhm.
And if I'm not there, it's not going to get done. And I know several caretakers who have people who come in almost full time during the week, and they
Mhm.
still won't leave to take a break.
Mm.
So
Oh,
let's talk for a second about the importance of taking a break, and really, what are some practical ways we can change that mindset?
So I always thought of myself like when I was a mother of young children and I got away and took a break, even if it was, a in taking a hot tub bath, just to get away
Yeah.
and just shut the door and have somebody watch, my husband watch the kids for an hour. I knew that when I came out, I was going to be a better mother. You will be a better caregiver. You will be more patient
Hmm.
and gentle and kind and have more of the fruits of the spirit
Yeah,
when you take time for yourself of giving yourself self-care.
absolutely.
So thinking in that respect
Hmm.
may help.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think that's really good. Because that is the way I have to change my mind, realizing that there are nurses there that have, like, she has a my mom has a full nursing team that live in the she lives in an assisted living apartment, and they're there from the 8 o'clock in the morning till 9:30 at night, I think.
Mm,
And a lot of times they can handle things way better than I can. But I love what you said about being patient, and taking that break equals being patient. And I
mhm.
am huge on self-care. And so as we kind of wind down our time together, I believe that we have to do self-care. One of the things that I loved in your book when you were talking about taking care of yourself, I do go for monthly massages. I have discovered that the monthly massage, for 1 hour, I'm in this room with music, and as my massage therapist is working the muscles of my body, there's toxins that are being eliminated from my body. And
Mm,
I didn't know about drinking water, and I didn't know about taking a shower, but now both of those things happen because as the toxins come out, we need to eliminate them so that your body doesn't, like you say in your book, the body doesn't reabsorb them. And just that simple key point was amazing to me.
right. So your listeners understand a natural detoxification process that God gave us was sweating.
Hmm.
Sweating is great. We should do more of it. And it removes toxins from our body, but it's important for us to shower shortly thereafter to remove the toxins so our body doesn't reabsorb it.
Had never thought about that. And then drinking the water to replace the fluids that we've lost. So there again. So as we talk about self-care, I had already there's things that I was already doing, but now I'm doing them a little more efficiently. So
Yeah.
thank you for that. And I want to encourage you as my listeners, but before we go and kind of talk about how people can find you in your book, I always like to ask my guests one question as we're kind of winding down the show. And that is, I every day I think of one thing that I can do to take care of myself. Sometimes it's a big thing like a massage, sometimes it's a little thing, but every day I do something. And so I always challenge my listeners by asking them this question: what are you going to do in the next 24 hours to take care of you?
Well, I am attending my writers group tonight. And this is a
Okay.
Christian writers group. We get together monthly. I've been in this group for 5 years. The members, we care for each other, we
Mm,
inspire each other, we uplift each other, we critique each other's work and the spiritual aspects of our writing.
mm,
A community is really, really important. Isolation is harmful to us.
mhm.
God did not make us to be in isolation.
Yeah.
So I am going to go spend an evening with friends in a writers group and in my community.
Oh, that's so cool. Well, Susan, thank you for joining us today. So, how can listeners find you? How can they get your healthy living series? And how can they find your new book?
So they can find me at my website, which is Susan U, that's the letter U, Neal, Neal.com, SusanUNeal.com. And they can find my new book, 12 Ways to Age Gracefully, at most online bookstores.
Okay.
So,
And it releases on May 28th.
yes.
Okay. That's just a few weeks away. So, thank you so much for joining us, Susan. And I can't wait to have some of my listeners get your book and dive into looking younger, looking and feeling younger. And if you would like to know more about my personal caretaker, if you're new to the show and you're not familiar with my personal caretaking journey, I do have a book called Are You Ready to Find Joy When Life Gets Messy? Because I have a messy, chaotic life. And all of this information will be in the show notes. So you can click. They're always hot links. So you can go down and click on them, both to get in touch with Susan, to get in touch with me. And it's also important to hit subscribe or follow, because that's how you know when a new episode drops. And we are back every week for a new episode. And I will be back next week for another meaningful conversation on what we deal with as caretakers on our journey. And until then, it's all about him.